includes national governments. Everyone talks about the revolving door between the Pentagon and private defense contractors. Mm-hmm. That's a no-brainer. So that this is a very attractive option for secrecy, is you privatize the money, and a small little clique of people are making a huge amount of money off this technology, and they have no incentive for sharing this with the world. So that's, I think, a big part of the motivation for the secrecy. Okay. And the other one that I would just say is, the longer you lie about this, the harder it becomes, the more of a public relations nightmare it's going to be to let this out, because you have to then explain why you've lied.
Exactly. And
you open up a can of worms of related topics that are not going to be easy to deal with publicly.
Well, one of the things that occurred to me was at the beginning, when you began to answer that question, you mentioned some of the plausible, reasons as to why they would keep, say, just the evidence that there are apparently non-terrestrial craft flying in our skies and we can't catch them. You mentioned religion as a plausible explanation. Now, I think that just that fact alone, if they were to release that fact, that would immediately blow open the myth that really underpins a lot of religions, the major world religions, in that we are alone in the universe. We are God's special creation, and people say that the flat earthers are long since dead, but there is that idea. Those archaic, completely misinformed ideas are still underpin the major world religions. Christianity still says,
although not Islam, actually. Islam, which recognizes the extraterrestrial reality, according to the Quran.
Yeah, but the thing is that it basically blows open that myth of religion, and would these people that keep the secret probably very quickly came to the conclusion that it would do away with, quite possibly very quickly do away with, say, Christianity.
Well, yeah, we can be grown-ups here and recognize that the Christian religion has been used for 2,000 years as major support for political power. And that's not a radical thing to say. And so by undermining the religion, you undermine the structure of power.
Yeah, and they don't want to do that.
No.
And that points very directly to the nature of government, the nature of the power structure on the planet. And I'm just trying to get back to basics here in a way, and to because this is something that I think a lot of people don't really want to accept, is that the purpose of major world religions and of governments, and they're all essentially linked together, is to control the population.
I say testify, brother. That's right.
But for me, this little piece of evidence that can be logically inferred from the facts in your book points to, it's almost like a smoking gun to the nature of government, the nature of religion, to control the population. And once you've got there, once you've got to that point, once you've accepted that, and that there's not really any wiggle room anymore, well, then you go, once you establish that as a reality, well, then you're in trouble, because you've got to start asking yourself, well, what else? What other tactics, what other data have they been keeping from the population across the board to essentially maintain the goal that they have, that is established by what I'm saying, to control the population?
Yeah, I think
that is the nature of government.
It's control. The UFO phenomenon didn't just fall into anyone's lap. It fell into the lap of a powerful national security apparatus. And that apparatus was the United States military-industrial complex, let's call it that. And so this wasn't just any old organization that had to deal with it. These are the guys with the resources and the intelligence. These are very brilliant people. They had to decide what to do about this. And the UFO phenomenon threatened their status. I think there's no question about that. The interesting thing is trying to understand the attitude of the UFO operators themselves, or the aliens, or these extraterrestrials. I've spent now more than 10 years trying to figure it out myself. What is their attitude toward us? On the one hand, they engage in various provocative ways with the militaries of the world, often playing little cat and mouse games, almost seeming like they're having fun with toying with us. On the other hand, there's very few instances in which they seem overtly or aggressively to be shooting our guys out of the sky. I mean, there are cases when aircraft appear to have been lost, but it typically appears to be cases when we're going after them. So you could argue, as some do, that they're not overtly hostile. On the other hand, I think there are reasons to be very suspicious, deeply suspicious of what they are. At all times, I feel like, whereas I wonder about the nature of these other beings, I've never been comfortable trying to make a definite determination as to whether I think they're good or evil. I suspect that there's a bit of both involved. I think if they were really good, though, they would have helped us out a little bit more right now. I mean, we're on a high-speed train, and the tracks are headed toward the edge of a cliff, and I don't see Space Brothers trying to bail our sorry asses out here at the 11th hour. So that's one argument mitigating against their good nature.
Oh, they're coming. They're coming.
They're going to
Just
help.
hold on. Just wait.
Just wait. Just wait.
The 11th hour. They'll be here.
I suspect, though, that they are intensely interested in us. I've felt this for a long time. We're going through such a rapid change in our own civilization. Sometimes we lose track, we lose perspective on just how incredible our moment in history right now is. In a mere 100 years, we have reinvented ourselves into such a way. I mean, think about a person living at the turn of the 20th century. They wouldn't be able to recognize our civilization today because of the rate of rapid technological change. And I personally believe that rate of change is continuing and maybe even getting more rapid, so that in another 20, 30, 40 years, we're going to be even more unrecognizable. So these other beings, I'm sure that they're interested in us. They might even be a little bit concerned about these warlike individuals who are going to be getting some really dangerous weapons in the next few generations. They might very likely want to keep tabs on us. They might even want to find ways to manipulate us in certain ways. And this is where I think we get into some interesting issues. They're not all provable, but I have personally speculated many times that if I were an alien here on Earth, I would be very interested in these humans, and I would probably want to find ways of managing that culture. And what I would do is to probably have a few humans working for me in positions of power. Now, that's a grand conspiracy theory that a lot of people are going to say, oh, this guy's gone off the deep end. But in fact, it's an idea that I think is plausible, although I can't prove it.
Well, it's a theory that we would be more or less in agreement with you about. And it's the fact that we do have this as a working hypothesis has gotten us into trouble with it. It's signs of the times. We spend a lot of time looking at what's going on in the world. Mm-hmm. And we've spent a lot of time analyzing 9/11, the follow-up to 9/11, who was responsible for 9/11, and trying to make alliances with other people that are concerned to getting to the truth. And the fact that we are interested in UFOs and in ET and in the possible link, what are these beings, what is their interest in us, and is there, heaven help us, a link between ET and 9/11?
Right. Yeah.
It means that we get the doors slammed in our face. And we've been told by other very serious 9/11 researchers whose work we quite respect that they would be happy to work with us, but only if we stop talking about all of these other issues.
But the extraterrestrial UFO thing in particular.
UFO issue.
It's funny because when I started talking publicly about 9/11, it was the first time I ever spoke publicly about it. I was at a UFO conference in 2007. I would say about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, either in 03 or 04. I'd been studying 9/11 for some time by then, but I hadn't talked publicly about it. Mm-hmm. So then I did, and I will say the people at this conference were 100% absolutely into it. But afterward, a few researchers came up to me, one in particular, a friend of mine, chastised me. He said, "Look, you're going to lose all credibility as a UFO researcher for doing 9/11." And I said, "Hey, dude, I research UFOs. I have no credibility. Let's get that. Secondly, you need to get on board because 9/11 is an issue that's not going to go away." Unfortunately, the 9/11 researchers, you're right, they are not aware that the UFO problem is real. It is significant. What is a bigger conspiracy, UFOs or 9/11? It's close, but I'd say UFOs. My opinion. They're both important. They're both monumental in our age. But the 9/11 researchers, if any of that are listening, they need to understand that the UFO cover-up is not fun and games. This is serious stuff that involves more money than they have any idea about.
As a plausible explanation. And I think that just that fact alone, if they were to release that fact, that would immediately blow open the myth that really underpins a lot of religions, the major world religions, in that we are alone in the universe. We are God's special creation, and people say that the flat earthers are long since. Things that occurred to me was at the beginning when you began to answer that question, you mentioned some of the plausible reasons as to why they would keep, say, just the evidence that there are apparently non-terrestrial craft flying in our skies, and we can't catch them. You mentioned religion, dead, but I mean there is that idea. Those archaic, kind of completely misinformed ideas are still underpin the major world religions. I mean, Christianity still says,
although not Islam, actually. Islam, which
exactly.
recognizes the extraterrestrial reality, according to the Quran.
Yeah, but the thing is that it basically blows open that
big part of the motivation for the secrecy.
Okay.
And the other one that I would just say is, the longer you lie about this, the harder it becomes, the more of a public relations nightmare it's going to be to let this out, because you have to then explain why you've lied.
Exactly.
And you open up a can of worms of related topics that are not going to be easy to deal with publicly.
Well, one of the things...
It includes national governments. Everyone talks about the revolving door between the Pentagon and private defense contractors. That's a no-brainer. So that this is a very attractive option for secrecy, is you privatize the money, and a small little clique of people are making a huge amount of money off this technology, and they have no incentive for sharing this with the world. So that's, I think, a big